Roosevelt's going to start calling for way bigger changes. And he does this in a speech at Osawatomie in Kansas. And he announces ideas of new nationalism. So we had square deal before, and now we're going to have new nationalism. And new nationalism is way further towards progressivism. And I want to talk about, I'm going to give you some of the things that he wanted new nationalism, because this is on the test. Because his new nationalism is going to set the legislative agenda for like the next 50 years. In fact, do you know what he called for in new nationalism? Nationalized health care. He calls for nationalized health care. Oh, that will be on the test. He calls for more regulation, reduced tariff. He wants a higher income tax on the wealthy. Yes?
Is that where FDR got the idea for it from? Or is
every president from like Teddy Roosevelt to Nixon. Nixon wanted national health care. He's a conservative Republican. And yeah, so every president, like it kind of goes away, and then Clinton tries to bring it back, it didn't work, and then Obama.
Why is it taking so long?
Because a lot of it's complicated. Americans are fiercely individualistic, and a lot of the rest of the world, people think that health is a civil right. Healthcare is a civil right. But in America, Americans oftentimes think that healthcare is something that you earn by working. The problem in America, though, is a lot of people who work don't have healthcare. Of the 46 million Americans who don't have healthcare, most of them have jobs. They just can't afford healthcare. Many of them are, Walmart employees are a good example. Walmart pays so little that they allow for their employees to go on Medicaid because of it. Americans don't like higher taxes, even if it means their daily bills are lower. More taxes are worse. I don't know.
Stupid Tea Party.
I don't know.
But it just seems like again, I can understand currently, but it seems like that even if it started in 1900.
Most of the European medical systems started after World War I. I don't know, Andrew, why do you hate national health care?
Well, there's certain, like, from helping out people who can't get it because their job isn't paid up, I understand that. There's some social things in there that I don't agree with. Like, I know our current thing requires businesses to pay for, like, abortions and stuff that are government funded, and that's causing some, like, Christian businesses and stuff that feel morally obligated to not pay for that to go out of business.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually, you're allowed to, the Catholic Church had that issue. Because the Catholic Church employs a lot of people like St. Joe's Hospital, for instance, right? That you can apply for an exemption on that. That actually is a thing that your health providers do have to, actually with the Catholic Church it was not just abortion, but it was also about birth control. Yeah. You can apply for an exemption if you're a business. But a lot of Americans just don't like the idea of giving health care, which is expensive, to lazy people who don't work. In the end, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, that's for sure.
In the European countries, people would say, well, it's kind of like, I mean, should we allow a gay person to get married even if they're lazy? Even if they're a bad person? Okay, or should a black person have rights even if they're a bad person? Yeah. But in America, for whatever reason, when it comes, because we say it's a civil right, right? All African Americans should get the same rights as everybody else. Gay people should get the rights as everybody else. When it comes to health care, Americans don't, not all of them, many Americans don't see it as a civil right. In Europe, they tend to see it as a civil right. Actually, we're the only industrialized nation in the world that doesn't have health care for everybody. But what else? So we have tax reform. He wanted a tax on your inheritance. He wanted rich estates to be taxed more.
Yes.
Republicans today hate it. They call it the death tax.
Even though it doesn't affect that many people.
Yeah, it's on people it's over $5 million. Currency reform. He wanted labor reforms. He wanted campaign financing reforms. Initiative, referendum. He wants real economic and political changes. And a lot of what's going to be going on over the next 50 years will be coming from new nationalism. This, and you'll see, I'll guarantee you see this on the multiple choice test next time you see this. The new nationalism is calling for these changes, and he announces it in Kansas of all places when he comes back, and this is what he wants to do. In fact, the old guard starts really not liking him. And he's asked in 1911, are you going to run for president in 1912? And he says, my hat's in the ring. Because back then all men wore hats everywhere, and when you put your hat somewhere, that means you were in. In fact, there's an old story about there was a wall, and this guy didn't think he could climb the wall, and he didn't know what he was going to do. So he took his hat, and he threw it over the wall, because that made him have to go get it. Right? Once you have to do something, you can do it. So there's a lot of sayings that always have hats in them that come from this era, because I always had a hat. And my hat's in the ring. But the Republicans were furious. In fact, when they met for their national convention, they did not want Roosevelt there. So Roosevelt joins the Progressive Party. Although Robert La Follette was originally going to be the presidential candidate of the Progressive Party, but when Roosevelt comes in, he pushes him out.
He's Roosevelt.
Because he's Roosevelt, and they ask him, how do you feel? And he says, I feel as healthy as a bull moose. And the Progressive Party ends up becoming nicknamed the Bull Moose Party. And now you have to do this when we talk about the Bull Moose Party. So we have Buffalo, barbed wire, Bull Moose. When we talk about FDR, we go like this. FDR.
FDR was one of the greatest presidents ever.
Alright. Tomorrow, hold on. Tomorrow, we're going to get through Wilson pretty fast. I know it looks like a lot of stuff, but it won't take that long.